Let's move to our next topic, that is custom exceptions. The question is, what is custom exceptions? There are two types of exceptions. One is predefined exceptions, which we already have seen. Another is custom exceptions that we define, that programmers define. Those are project specific. Okay. So the question is, when we already have a lot of predefined exception classes, then why we need to create our own exception classes? Why we need to create custom exception classes? The reason behind this is predefined exceptions are very generic. For example, arithmetic exception or array index out of bound exception or null pointer exceptions. These exceptions can come in any project in any class. Okay. And the messages are very generic. Okay. There are some abnormal conditions which are project specific. Okay. And to handle those abnormal conditions, we need to have some project specific, some custom exception classes. For example, let's say in my project, I don't want to allow a user which is having age more than 18. Then that user will not be able to access my application's functionalities. Okay. So for that particular use case, I need to validate end user's age. Okay. If age is more than 18, then I don't want to throw null pointer exception. I don't want to throw arithmetic exceptions. These predefined exceptions are very generic. Okay. I want a specific exception for this abnormal condition only, which is related to my project, which is related to my business only. Okay. And for that reason, I need to have some invalid age exception or some exception which is related to my project specifically. Okay. So in general, we always have a lot of custom exception classes in every single project. Okay. Those are defined for different type of abnormal conditions. Those abnormal conditions we define from the business perspective. Okay. We are going to learn that in detail, how and what are the different conditions in general any project can have, and for them how we can define custom exception classes and how we can handle the exceptions in our project. That is very hot topic in interviews. Okay. So that we are going to discuss in detail in Spring Boot global exception handling concept. Okay. So as of now, we are more focused on what is custom exception, and we want to know how to define custom exception classes. How we are going to actually implement them in real project, we will learn it in Spring Boot. Okay. So now the question is how we can define custom exception class. Can a normal class behave like an exception class? No, we cannot define a normal class, a normal Java class, and use it as an exception class. Because when you try to use it, when you try to throw any Java class object, then it will start throwing you error. Okay. You cannot throw any Java object in Java. You can only throw exception class object in Java, or the classes which are child of exception hierarchy. Okay. Those classes objects can only be thrown. So if you want to create any custom exception class, you have to first understand for what purpose you want to use it. If you just want to use it for your business perspective, then you need to probably use runtime exception in that case, and you have to define your class by implementing or extending runtime exception class. Okay. And then you will define your own condition inside there, and then that class will be treat as an custom exception class. Similar to that, if you want to define some checked exception, you can again extend your class with any existing predefined checked exception class, and then that class will be behave like an checked exception class. Let's better understand this with this implementation. I have a custom exception class which I am extending with exception class. As I told you, you can extend your custom exception class with any existing exception class, but make sure that what purpose you are going to use your custom exception. Whether you want to use it for as runtime exception class or you want to use it as checked exception, then accordingly you have to extend your class with some existing exception class. Okay. In here, I am just defining one constructor which is going to receive a message, and that message I am passing to parent exception. That message is going to be displayed when this exception is going to be occur, or when this exception object is going to be thrown, that message is going to be displayed. Okay, then I'm creating one simple class. In this class I am having a try block, and I have some data which I'm receiving from somewhere. Let's suppose it's a number, and I'm validating whether the number is greater than 5 or not. From my business perspective, if number is not greater than 5, then the value is not correct, and that is a kind of abnormal condition. From my business perspective, that is not allowed, and in that case I want to throw the exception. Okay, it's just not only printing the message using system.out.println inside my if condition, but moreover it is throwing some exception object to the end user with some appropriate message, with some enough information related to that exception condition, and end user will better understand the issue related to that exception. Okay, so in this program, I'm just validating whether number is not greater than 5. If it is greater than 5, then it's an abnormal condition. I'm throwing the exception and then catching it. And then after, I am executing rest of the code. I am avoiding abnormal termination of my program. In this program, I'm just showing you how this custom exception is basically used, and how we can use it to throw the exception, and then I'm able to execute rest of the code. But in general, you will not do this. You will create custom exception class, and then you will define the condition, and for those conditions you will throw the exceptions only. You will not catch them directly there. Okay, those exception will goes to the front end side. On UI side, they will catch them and they will understand what was the issue. Accordingly, they will send the error message pop-up to the end user, so that end user can understand what mistake he did. This flow is mainly works in distributed applications. In REST APIs also, the flow is almost the same. We will throw the exception that goes to the end user who is calling that REST API, and will see the messages with status codes and can understand the issue related to that request. Okay, in MVC applications, there is a different approach of handling the exceptions. We are not learning here how to handle the exceptions in the project. We are just learning how to create custom exceptions, and to demonstrate how that custom exceptions works in the project, I am just throwing the exception and catching it here itself. But in real world scenarios, the implementation will be slightly different. Okay, so as of now, this information is pretty enough. I'll give you some of the assignments related to custom exceptions. You just try to learn how to use custom exceptions and try to make better understanding with custom exceptions, so that you will feel good with custom exceptions before we will start global exception handling in Spring Boot.